Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 3 and we will present about data collection technique in CCAR. The first technique is interview and will be delivered by me, Hardika Wania Rohma. And next is my group member, Yose Rahayu Wilujeng, will present about survey. And then Muhammad Zidan Sanjaya will tell you about observation. And the last one is Muhammad Syaikul Hadi Purnomo, will talk about ethical issue or ethical consideration. Yose, please share screen. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's jump to the first one is the interview. Okay, so interview is a kind of interaction between two people or more to collect information. And then a number of participant combination, and then a number of participant combination can be used to conduct an interview in CCAR, researcher to teachers, and then teacher to researchers, and researcher to learners, and teacher to learners. Okay, and there are three types of interview. The first one is structured interview, semi-structured interview, and unstructured interview. Okay, so for structured interview, in structured interview, each participant is asked the same questions and using the same word and in the same order as all the other participants. A structured interview has the advantages like efficient time, and then limiting researcher subjectivity and bias, and allowing researcher to control the topics and format of the interview. However, structured interviews are not flexible, which means new questions cannot be asked during the interview as an interview schedule must be followed. And then, as you can see on the slide, structured interview can be conducted through face-to-face interview and telephone interview. In face-to-face interview, researcher can elicit more in-depth response or fill in information if participant doesn't understand the questions. It can be tape recorded with the interviewee's permission. And then face-to-face interviews also giving the interviewer a lot of options for creating a pleasant interview environment. And on the other hand, FTF interviews or face-to-face interviews are more time-consuming to recruit and conduct. And as a result of timing and travel, face-to-face interviews can be expensive. And then the second type is the telephone interview. Telephone interview is inexpensive and maybe convenient. Well, it also allows the interviewee to respond more spontaneously and without having to think too hard. However, the interviewer cannot see the interviewee body language and other nonverbal cues cannot be used as sources of additional information. And then the second type of interview is semi-structured interviews. This interview follow a set interview schedule with predetermined questions, but they are more flexible than structured interviews in that you can utilize probes to elicit additional information as needed. Moreover, open-ended questions are used to allow the interviewee to speak more freely. And in semi-structured interview, the researcher can change the sequence and language of the questions, as well as extra questions. And however, one disadvantage is that inexperienced researchers may be unable to determine where to ask from questions or probe responses. So some relevant data may not be gathered. And then the last one is unstructured interview. Okay, so the goal of unstructured interview is to learn more about the respondents' lives and experiences. And such interviews typically long and demand a high level of confidence of the interviewee as well as a significant degree of experience of the researcher. So the researcher must think carefully about what questions to ask, and they must pay attention and take down any new interesting information provided by the participant. And also, the researcher who conduct unstructured interview must be good communicators and facilitators in order to complete this interview. And unstructured interview do not limit the types of question that can be asked, and particularly useful when little is known about a topic or when gathering background information. If you never conducted an interview before starting with an unstructured interview, is usually not a good idea. Okay, so the next slide, please. Okay, and as you can see in the slide, here is the general advantages and disadvantages of the interview. Okay, so note that usually interviews applied for qualitative research method, and there are a lot of advantages and disadvantages. For the advantages, they are beneficial for gaining perspective and context, and then they assist participants in expressing what important to them. They also useful for gathering quotation and stories, just like what I explained previously. And it is also allow the researcher to establish connection with the subject and allow researcher to listen and observe at the same time, like in the face-to-face interview or in the telephone interview. And then they make it possible to ask more complicated questions. And also the researcher can explain the study's goal and address any questions that the participant might have. The researcher can elicit further information from the individual by exploring their responses. Also, a question can be clarified by the participants, and they make it easier for the participants to provide detailed responses. Next slide, please. And for the disadvantages, they are prone to bias, which could include the participants' desire to satisfy the researcher, and the participants may saying what they saying what they believe the researcher wants to hear, such as providing an official viewpoint rather than their own. And then participants may not answer truthfully because they want to make a good first impression. So they can make up their answer, like something like that. And if a participant cannot answer a questions or has nothing to say about a topic, they are more likely to say anything than to remain silent. And then they are more suited to certain groups, such as those who have difficulty reading or writing. And the last one is participants can benefit from interviews since they encourage self-exploration and discovery. Thank you. That's all from me.
All right, so we are now moving to the next topic, which is about survey. So survey is actually one of the study or research techniques that is focusing on describe the characteristics. If previously we talk about interview that is usually used in qualitative research methodology, while survey is usually mostly used for quantitative research methodology. In survey, mostly survey conducting to focusing on describe the characteristic, attitudes, opinion, or behaviors of population. Survey is also a part of techniques for quantitative studies that I have mentioned before, and the way to collect the data for survey is from spread the questionnaire to the participants or to the participant, and also do an interview. And for interview, I think you have might heard from previous presentators, that is explain about interview in more detail, about what kind of interview, what type of interview, and all about that. And while conducting a survey, researchers should take a sample of population or object that they want to research. This sample should represent the entire of the population. For example, when researchers want to describe about trends such as a community interest in issues or state or national trends about mandatory students' uniform policies, researchers will use survey research to determine individual perception about these policies issues. So I will use Bahasa to explain this more detail. So maybe our viewer will understand this more clearly or clearer. So, contoh dari survei sendiri itu seperti ini. Ketika kita ingin melakukan survei tentang pendapat siswa di sekolah mengenai aturan atau tata cara atau kode etik penggunaan busana maupun seragam di dalam sekolah, kita tidak mungkin untuk mewawancarai atau mungkin saja memberikan kuesioner atau lembar survei yang biasa kita temui ke seluruh siswa dalam satu sekolah tersebut. Tapi untuk melakukan interview, tidak mungkin jika kita mengambil atau menginterview jumlah keseluruhan siswa dalam satu sekolah tersebut. Maka dari itu ada yang namanya sampel yang mana harus kita ambil dan kita jadikan patokan. Dan kita juga harus yakin sebelum memilih sampel tersebut bahwa sampel yang kita ambil ini dapat mewakili keseluruhan populasi, yaitu jumlah siswa dalam satu sekolah. That's how we conduct survey. That's how the general knowledge about survey. And survey is divided into two types, which is the first one is cross-sectional and the second one is longitudinal. Cross-sectional design can examine current attitudes, beliefs, opinion, or practices. Attitudes, beliefs, and opinion are ways in which individuals think about issues, whether practices are their actual behaviors. It is better to understand deeper about cross-sectional survey design by drawing several examples and situations. For example, cross-sectional is actually more focusing on a general population or general sample. So, for example, when we want to research about social behavior in Papua ethnicity, so we will focusing on their social behavior. I mean, the social behavior of Papua ethnicity rather than each of individuals Papua people. That's what we call by cross-sectional, or that's how simply the definition of cross-sectional survey. And then the second is longitudinal. Longitudinal is actually the alternative in using cross-sectional design in survey, and it is more individual. If cross-sectional is research about the particular people or the general population of people, longitudinal is the vice versa or the opposite. So longitudinal is focusing on researching on each individuals over time. So basically longitudinal needs to use longer time rather than cross-sectional. And then, in a longitudinal, there is a breakdown. The first one is trend studies. Trend studies are longitudinal survey design that research about the changes upon population over time to time. As I said, so trend studies is actually research about the changes in, it could be in society or in education or anything. Actually, the key word or the key focus in trend studies is the changes over time. So when we want to research about social culture changes or social behavior changes in Papua ethnicity or for Papua people, we have to research those things or Papua ethnicity in a long time. For example, maybe if we started research about Papua ethnicity in 2001, then we have to make the limit, or we have to make the timeline. We have to decide the research is about maybe like 3 years or 5 years. It couldn't be done in a short time, like for about a week or 2 week or a month, since longitudinal is researching about something that is done in a long time. So when we do a research in a short time for researching changes in social, it may cause the result. I think the result isn't that, what is it? Isn't that believable gitu. And then the second is cohort studies. Instead of studying the trends changes of the population over time, cohort studies might another way to study a subpopulation over time. Cohort study is the process of longitudinal survey design, which the researchers identified subpopulation based on specific characteristics such as ages. And then the third is panel studies. A third type of longitudinal survey design is the panel study. Distinct from both the trend and the cohort study, a panel study is a longitudinal survey design in which the researcher examines the same people over time. So if a cohort study, I will explain this bahasa so that our viewer may understand easier. So jadi cohort study itu, kalau trend studies, tadi menganalisis tentang perubahan yang terjadi di masyarakat dalam jangka waktu yang panjang, over time. So it's not in the short time. Tidak bisa kita melakukan trend studies itu hanya dalam jangka waktu 1 minggu atau 2 minggu. It should be at least a year, I think ya, at least a year. Menurut saya 1 tahun itu sudah waktu yang minimal. Karena kenapa? Perubahan sosial yang terjadi di masyarakat itu tidak akan terjadi secepat mungkin, apalagi dalam waktu 1 minggu atau 2 minggu. So that's why we have longer time than that, like at least or minimum a year to see the changes. If we conduct this trend studies longitudinal survey in a short time, mungkin hasilnya tidak akan semaksimal ketika orang melakukan penelitian hingga bertahun-tahun. As we know that research is broad, penelitian itu luas, and each over time there will always be change in our society and in our citizen. Lalu untuk yang cohort studies itu dia lebih fokus ke ibaratnya variabel gitu. Ketika researcher want to focus in ages, berarti sampel atau orang-orang atau individuals yang mau mereka guide, yang mau mereka ambil untuk menjadi participants harus memiliki umur yang sama. Begitu. Itu untuk cohort studies. And then for panel studies itu lebih sorry, I have to look back at my notes. Kalau yang panel studies tadi itu lebih fokus ke sama seperti cohort studies, fokus ke karakteristik dan perubahan yang terjadi di satu tempat atau yang kita ingin teliti itu tadi. So it's actually not that different between cohort and panel studies, since it's still in a one scope survey. So I think they both do not have that much different. And we're going to move on to the next slide. And this is the key characteristic of survey. Key characteristics is actually means how we get the data when we want to do a survey. So as I said earlier, that in survey, we need a sample. We need a sample that represent the entire population, all right? So this is in my left hand side, in the left side of the screen, you see that there is sampling of population. This is how we can get the real sample from the large amount or the large size of population. So for example, if you want to survey um, a students in one school, and in one school at least in one school at least have maybe about 8,000 students, right? So sampling of uh, population is have several stages, beberapa tahap. Okay, so we start from the highest part, which is population. So population is the large amount or the maximum amount of the population that we are going to research, and then we have to select them by our limitation that we have made before, and it become target population. And then after it become target population, it become a sample, which is the rest of the students that we are going to do a research, and this sample can represent the entire population of students in the school. And the second is the way how we collect data if we want to conduct a survey. The first is questionnaire. When questionnaire is actually simply like when we are giving a bunch of questions to participants, and questionnaire is divided into two types. The first one is mailed questionnaire, and the second one is electronic questionnaire. I think you guys here is not that is really familiar with electronic questionnaire that college students and teacher nowadays always use to make questionnaire, whether make questionnaire or make a quiz. And we have all know that, which is Google Forms, or the other way of Google Forms if Microsoft Teams. So those things or those software are the apps of making an electronic questionnaire. And we'll move on to the next slide. This is interview, and the previous presenters has explained about this in detail. So actually, by doing interview, we can get the data for survey. So actually, while we are doing interview, we are also doing a survey at the same time. And interview is divided um, three types. We have three types in interview. The first one is individual interview, or it is similar with face-to-face interview or F interview. And then the second is telephone interview. And the third is focus group interview. All right, and the next is the advantages and also disadvantages. I think I have talked too much, too long, so I just need to read 1 point each, yeah, 1 point each for advantages and for disadvantages. So for the advantages is the first point, the research produces data based on real world observations or we say that empirical data. As we know that survey is, when we do survey, we are going and mixed with real life with social, so that's why the data is truthful or bisa dipercaya, kuat gitu. And then the disadvantages is the first, the significance of the data can become neglected if the researcher focuses too much on the range of coverage to the exclusion of an adequate account of the implications of those data for relevant issues, problem, or theories. The second, or the end of my presentation for my topic survey, is ethical consideration in conducting a survey, ethical consideration or ethical issues. So when we need participant to help our survey, when we want a sample, we have to ask them their confidentiality and consent. Since our participants and our samples will be human, it's different when we are going to do an experimental design. While experimental design can done in a dead thing, while survey will always do in a human. So before that, before we research them or research our sample, we have to ask their consent, since it's humans, right? We have to ask them, do you want to be my sample or my participants in conducting this research? And the first thing, you have to say your purpose or your aim in conducting this research to your participants. You have to be open to your participants so that your participants will decide after you explain detail to your participants. So I think that's all for survey. We can continue to the next topic, types or observation. I invite Zidan. So please, time is yours, Zidan.
Okay, thank you, Jose, for letting me speak after you. Thank you for the time. Okay, so here I will explain more about observation. But before we going to the types of observation, I want to tell you guys about the definition of observation. So observation, the term observation is used for monitoring all the action and occurrences that related to the problem being studied. So maybe I will explain this topic that mixed by Bahasa and English, so the viewer can get better understanding. Jadi observasi itu bisa dikatakan sebagai kegiatan mengawasi setiap kegiatan dan peristiwa yang ada hubungannya dengan masalah yang sedang diteliti. Observation can facilitate the researcher to archive and evaluate the social context and issues that happen. Observasi pun bisa menjadi fasilitas bagi peneliti untuk menjadikan sebagai dokumentasi untuk peristiwa yang sedang diteliti. Jadi kemungkinan untuk ada penelitian selanjutnya untuk sumbernya itu bisa dipakai ulang gitu. Jadi bisa dipakai sebagai referensi. Jadi seperti itu. Okay, so now I will explain about the types of observation. As you can see here, there are two types of observation. They are participant and non-participant. The difference of the types of observation here can be seen from the role of researcher that can be taken up in the observation as the name of each types of observation. Jadi selama ada dua ini, mereka bisa dilihat dari namanya masing-masing. Jadi sebagai partisipan, researcher can be as a member of the research. Jadi kalau partisipan peneliti itu berada di dalam penelitian tersebut. I will explain more about it later. Now, non-participant. Non-participant, the researcher does not taking part in the research observation. Jadi sebaliknya, jadi dari partisipan, non-partisipan, peneliti tidak ada di dalam research, tidak ada di dalam penelitian. Jadi contohnya kita ambil konteks di dalam kelas. Jadi kalau partisipan, peneliti ada di dalam kelas. Mereka bisa merekam atau mungkin taking notes, mencatat di dalam kelas. Jadi mereka ada di dalam kelas itu ikut dalam kegiatan belajar mengajar. Kalau non-partisipan, contohnya di dalam kelas tadi konteksnya, peneliti tidak ada di dalam kelas. Jadi peneliti hanya merekam dari kamera, entah itu dari smartphone atau kamera SLR gitu misalnya. Jadi cuma ada kameranya saja atau alat recording saja di dalam kelas tersebut. Berarti tidak ada di dalam kelas tersebut, tidak ikut berpartisipasi dalam kegiatan belajar mengajar seperti itu. Oke, next, yes, please. So now we move on to the basic factor of observation. I found this basic factor of observation from Anne Burns' book. So there are several factors that you can see here of observation. The first one is decide on the focus of observation which is relevant to your group's research. Do not try to record anything. Do not try to record everything. Jadi jangan merekod atau merekam semuanya. Jadi seumpama konteksnya belajar mengajar, jangan direkod semuanya. Jadi cuma hal yang terpenting waktu mungkin research, masalah-masalah yang memang sedang dicari, masalahnya ada di dalam topik research tersebut gitu. Jadi harus memang menentukan topiknya dulu, baru nanti bisa merekam apa-apa saja yang harus direkam. The second, identify a specific physical location in which the observation will be conducted. Jadi harus juga ditentukan di mana observasi itu akan berlangsung. Jadi konteksnya, topiknya itu apa, observasinya itu mau di mana, seperti itu. Mungkin bisa classroom atau playground, coffee area, cafe, etc. Next, consider the group of individual to be observed. Di sini maksudnya itu partisipannya itu mau sebanyak apa. Mungkin whole group class, satu kelas bisa, atau mungkin student pairs, atau mungkin mixed gender group, maksudnya itu antara gender pria dan wanita itu bisa dicampur, atau mungkin hanya individual student, cuma satu individu murid saja. Next is record the events as they happen or as soon as possible as they happen. Jadi segera mungkin waktu peristiwa yang sedang diteliti itu terjadi harus segera direkod, harus segera direkam. Next, be as objective and precise as possible in your observations and avoid using evaluative language that makes inferences about people's behavior or thinking. Jadi di sini sebagai peneliti kita tidak boleh menggunakan kata-kata yang menyimpulkan sikap seseorang. Contoh, afraid, nervous, anxious. Jadi takut, terus gugup atau yang semacamnya itu yang berhubungan dengan sikap seseorang itu kita tidak diperbolehkan menggunakan kata-kata seperti itu. Next, try to record complete events or incidents. This allows more inclusive and holistic picture of the situation to emerge, so that ordinary as well as unusual events are observed. Jadi kalau bisa itu waktu tadi konteksnya belajar mengajar, jangan sampai topik atau konteks yang kita sedang teliti itu terpotong. Memang tidak boleh semuanya, yang kembali ke pertama tadi, tidak boleh merekod semuanya dari awal pembelajaran sampai akhir itu kita tidak perlu merekod semua sebenarnya, meskipun tidak harus. Tapi konteksnya seumpama murid-murid apakah aktif di dalam kelas jika digunakan jigsaw reading. Nah, waktu jigsaw reading itu yang terpenting, jadi tidak boleh terpotong. Kalau salam atau apa itu doa kan tidak terlalu penting, jadi bisa dipotong. Jadi yang konteksnya yang terpenting tadi main topiknya itu jigsaw reading seumpama waktu pembelajaran jangan sampai terpotong seperti itu. Yang terakhir, develop a system for recording that fits in with other activities occurring in the context of the observation. Yeah, I think that's all. Sorry, yes, sir. Can you please go to the previous slide? I forgot to mention a thing. So in the books, so Anne Burns stated in her book that participant types of observation has a huge weakness, and that is the participant of research can be easier to distracted by the camera, or the researcher who wants to record and taking notes in the situation, in the circumstances. Jadi kelemahan terbesar dari partisipan peserta penelitian pun juga bisa terganggu atau teralihkan karena adanya kamera atau alat recording lainnya, atau mungkin peneliti yang sedang di belakang kelas, misalnya yang tadi konteksnya kalau di dalam kelas, murid-murid kan nanti juga bisa kayak teralihkan gitu loh, jadi terganggu waktu proses belajar mengajar. Jadi Anne Burns menyatakan seperti itu di dalam bukunya untuk partisipan. Okay, I think that's all from me for observation topic. We can move on to the next slide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Zidan. Now is the last topic. The last topic is ethical issues or ethical consideration. Ethical issues, ethical consideration relates to conducting digital data collection in research, which includes consents, data handling, minors data rights, observing behaviors that may result in risk of harm to participant or others. Ethical issues is one of the most essential aspects of the research. If this component is lacking, dissertation may be condemned to fail. Following 10 criteria, according to Payman and Bell, constitute the most essential concept connected to ethical issues or consideration in dissertation are: at the first is research participants should not be subject to harm in any way whatsoever. And the second, respect for dignity of research participants should be prioritized. And the third, full consent should be obtained from the participant prior to the study. Fourth, the protection of the privacy of research participant has to be ensured. At 5, adequate level of confidentiality of the research data should be ensured. And 6, anonymity of individual and organization participate in the research has to be ensured. Can be next. Yes, sir. And 7, any deception or exaggeration about the aims and objective of the research must be avoided. And 8, affiliation in any form of funding as well as any possible conflict of interest have to be declared. And 9, any type of communication in relation to the research should be done with honesty and transparency. And last, any type of misleading information as well as the presentation of primary data findings in a biased way must be avoided. The next, yes, sir. And the next, I will give tips to effectively handle two essential issue part of your dissertation. And you will need to devote at least one paragraph to each of the following points. At the first is voluntary participation of respondent in the research is important. Moreover, participants have rights to withdraw from the study at any stage if they wish to do. Second, respondents should participate on the basis of informed consent. The principle of informed consent involves research providing sufficient information and assurance about taking part to allow individuals to understand the implication of participation and to reach a fully informed, consider and freely given decision about whether or not to do so without the exercise of any pressure or coercion. And the third, the use of offensive, discriminatory, or other unacceptable of language needs to be avoided in the formulation of questionnaire or interview or focus group question. And the third is privacy and anonymity or respondent is of paramount importance. And the fifth, acknowledgement of work of other author is in any part of the dissertation with the use of Harvard APA and Vancouver referencing system according to dissertation handbook. And the sixth, mention of the highest level of objective in discussion and analyze stroke of the research. And the seventh is adherence to Data Protection Acts 90 and 19A if you are studying in the UK. What is Data Protection Acts 90 and 98? The protection data 90 and 98 was a Act of Parliament of the United Kingdom designed to protect personal data stored on computer or in an organized paper filing system. This is the last for me. Any question?
Okay, thank you. So that's all for our group presentation and discussion. Thank you very much for all audiences who have already view our presentation. Thank you so much once again for your nice and patient attention. I close this presentation by recite Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.